At the end of class, I'll talk about your homework this week and some stuff that you can do or don't have to do. So make sure you listen, because otherwise you're going to do everything, and you don't have to do everything. Real quick, you all do have your teams. You have for like 3 weeks. Technically, I believe the action plan is supposed to be due this Sunday. I'm going to push it back 1 week, so it's due in 2 weeks, because it doesn't really matter, honestly, when you get it done to me. It just needs to be done. You can't start on the final project until it's done, and I wanted you to have as much time to get it done. So you can turn it in at any point between now and 2 weeks, but it won't be late for 2 weeks. Let me pull this up and everybody can see. Boom. Let me share my screen. Oh my gosh. I'm about to lose my mind. This doesn't move. Okay. That sounds healthy. Yeah. All right. So make sure you're going up here to groups. When you click groups, you'll see your final project teams, and in there you can find your team. I've said this before, but I still get probably 1 email a day of somebody saying, I don't know who my team is. It's in here. You'll only be able to see your team, and you can email them. Definitely start reaching out. Inevitably, somebody's not going to respond in your team. And all you can do is reach out, and if they don't respond and you guys are working on it, you just move on without them. And this is college. You all are adults. I'm sorry, but it happens. So
we don't have any 14-year-old geniuses in the class.
Man, I took a class one time with a kid that in my master's that was 16, and he was a jerk.
In your master's class?
Yeah.
He was 16?
Yeah.
Oh God.
I didn't know you can enroll that early.
He didn't. He was technically a high school student, but they let him take classes. And he was a jerk, and he got the entire class against him. Because it turns out with intelligence doesn't come maturity. And he was a jerk.
But he's going to find the cure for business cancers.
Yeah, I know that's the problem. Being a genius in business doesn't really help anybody, to be honest, because it's so much soft skills. Anyway, where are we at here? When you guys do the final or the action plan, it's still under the final project. This is what you'll be doing all semester. Everything for the final project is always in the final project module. Final project files. In here is the turn-in action plan. You only have to have one person on your team turn it in. However, do put everybody's names at the top. And that's because inevitably one student's not going to respond in your group and you guys are going to work on it. And then when you get to the due date, you turn it in. It's going to submit it for them, but I'm only going to count it towards everybody whose name's on the paper. And if you feel like you're the person who's getting scolded by your team and they kicked you off the paper, I want to be honest. That's never happened legitimately. That student that got left off would always email me weeks after it was due and say, oh, my team left me off of it. I'm like, why are you telling me now? So I've never had a group of students conspire to kick somebody off their project. And if it happens, cool. That'd be kind of fun to deal with, but I haven't had to deal with it yet. Usually everybody works out great.
Let's do it first.
Yeah, don't be the first, please. Please. I did for the first time last year have a group that fought hard, like so hard. I had to like have a meeting with all of them. We had to have like group therapy session. For a project. They were like fighting.
It's never that deep.
It's never that deep. No, they like hated each other. Over just being like, they're being condescending, whatever, but we're not going to have that problem because it's not that deep.
I'm pretty sure that's deep.
Truly not. All right. Before I get into the actual lecture, I don't have like a ton of other updates besides that. In the news, there's nothing like really crazy going on, except there's a whole bunch of buyouts going on. EA Sports, there are EA Electronic Arts. They make Madden and Battlefield. Right now they're trying to get approval to make a $55 billion private sale, meaning you won't be able to own EA stock anymore. It'll be a massive sale. And that'll be kind of fun, make the stock market shift. I don't know if you guys are investors. Do you guys invest? Invest?
Yeah.
What do you invest in?
Mainly enough retirement homes.
Retirement homes?
Yes. That's a growing business with the increasing of the average age of life.
Oh, that makes sense.
Plus during COVID, dude, I made like $300 on the first week out of 100.
There you go. Well, the stock market's doing great, and with the sale of EA, that'll be pretty interesting. Outside of that, ChatGPT, this may be actually relevant to you all, just signed a deal with Shopify and Etsy so that you can buy through ChatGPT.
Based.
Yeah. That's going to get weird for all of you AI people, because if you've ever used ChatGPT, you can be like, hey, I do this all the time when I'm like fixing stuff in our house. I'll like take a picture of something and I'll be like, hey, I need the replacement part, and it will find it on Amazon and shoot me the link, right? And then I can just do it on ChatGPT and I get the part. Now it'll be able to recommend you things on ChatGPT from like Etsy and Shopify, and you'll be able to purchase through it.
That's cool.
Yes and
I'm
no.
not giving ChatGPT
It's-
any card.
It's gonna get a little.
because it's open source.
It's gonna get a little addy and weird. And so I don't know how it's going to work yet. I just know that it got approved for OpenAI to do that. I don't know if it'll be on ChatGPT's website itself, but that's the plan. Is Etsy and Shopify, which seems like a weird deal. I figured Amazon would jump on it. But yeah, so there you go. Let's talk about communication. Shall we? Now I'll reshare my screen. The news has finally calmed down. It's more fun to read now. The plan for today. And again, I'm tired and my throat is starting to like hurt a little bit, which I think is more allergy than sick related.
I thought that too.
And then you got sick?
Yeah.
What'd you have? Was it strep?
It was just like a 24-hour.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm fine with that. I get strep really easily. I think it's the children.
Soccer practice.
Dude, real though. I got this one kid that hugs me every time he does something good. That's fine, but don't touch me. It's not. I like that. So, besides my own kids, that's fine. Talking about communication, the plan is we're going to go through all the slides. They're pretty straightforward. This is notoriously a shorter lecture, so no worries. And then at the end, we're going to talk about a Harvard Business Review article that you all could read that's on managing up. Boom. And then I'm going to show you the AI assignment that you can do this week for extra credit. Unless you're my MBA students, you have to do it. Take that. But most people want to do it. Last year, I offered it for anybody that wanted to do it, and like 90% of students did it because it's kind of fun. And I spent time to build it, so you should do it.
I do love AI.
You don't you, right? This one's it's a safe AI. It's through Blackboard.
What?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about communication. Positive relationships first. Oh, I felt it in that cough. That was dangerous. I could feel it. I just don't feel it. It's not strep. I just don't feel good.
You got the COVID. Probably locked down.
Positive relationships in your life, regardless of your personality, have been shown to have an impact on your physical health. So like people that are sad and alone or don't have a lot of positive relationships are actually in worse condition, not just emotionally, but physically. And this applies to your jobs as well. Employees that report having more positive relationships within their organization are more loyal and committed to their work when these positive relationships exist. Excuse me. And good relationships between managers and subordinates is 3 times more powerful at predicting profitability than any other variables combined. Now, don't brush over this last one because this is huge.
Oh, yeah.
If I am surveying a company and I am trying to see how profitable they are going to be, like if you were trying to predict the stock market, technically the best indicator within a company is if they're going to be profitable would be if the managers and the employees report having a good relationship. Now, the reason you can't do that is because the only way to get that information is to be within the company and surveying these people at a large level. And also, good relationships tend to follow success. It's easier to be happy with your boss and happy with your employees when everybody's making money and everything's working well. So it's, again, a chicken and an egg thing. But that still is crazy. If you look at market share, capital intensity, firm size, and sales growth rate, all of those combined are less accurate at predicting how profitable a company will be compared to the relationships between managers and subordinates. I already told you about working in Stillwater and having employees that were college students and how no longer are people just looking for jobs that pay the bills. I think I told you all this, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And again, it's because people are seeking out positive relationships. They are less likely to work at organizations that they don't feel like they're friends with the people around them, friends with their managers, and that's always fun. Then you get this thing called it's called in-group versus out-group relationships. It was really hard for my wife to deal with, but in organizations, the person you tend to like the least is your manager, and then you tend to be more friends with your coworkers. And then what's kind of funny is if you have a bad manager, there's actually an increase in positive relationships with employees because you have a common enemy. Screw that guy, right? What's up?
That's actually a tactic the army uses and the military uses.
To make you angry at the same person.
Yeah, they'll in like war zones they'll have certain sergeants and like higher up, like first sergeants and second sergeants, first sergeants release, and they'll just go in there and bully people. They'll be strict on rules even though they went prior. Basically, just bully the younger staff and the enlisted to make everyone hate him.
Yeah.
So they're united with each other.
No, that completely makes sense. That's the good cop, bad cop, based on the same idea. We're going to have one person who's really, really mean to you, and then one person who's really nice to you, and that builds the relationship with the person being nice to you, and now it feels like you're on the same side.
Yeah.
You see this in companies. They have what's called in-group versus out-group. Managers really struggle with it. Like my wife worked on a team with 8 people. Eventually promoted within the same team. Now she's the manager. And she said what was really hard for her was she was a part of a employee-only chat, right? Where they would basically talk shit on, everybody else and the manager. And then when she became manager, she noticed that group got quiet. And it's because they went and made another group without her. And it's in-group versus out-group. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually good for employees to have their own quiet time, like together, separate from the manager. But generally, you want positive relationships between the manager and the employees, ultimately for profitability. Now, there is a difference between connections and relationships. Best way to describe this is connections are generally temporary or brief. Even if they're repeated, it's not like someone you deal with all the time consistently, whereas a relationship is more long-term. If you're working, co-workers, manager that's with you for a long time, this is a relationship. But a customer or someone within the company you have to deal with briefly is a connection. Now, good connections can be like high-quality relationships. They create a sense of vitality and energy for both individuals, sense of responsiveness and cooperation in the interaction. Excuse me. And I've been following this person, and I'm blanking on his name, but he is basically he's a TikToker, but I don't have TikTok, so it always shows up on like YouTube feeds and Facebook and all those places that people steal content, And he travels the world, and he's got this amazing British accent. And watching him, first of all, he has to be rich because he's traveling everywhere. But second, on his videos, he consistently gets upgrades at like hotels and airports. And when he's meeting people, locals are like always so friendly to him, and they want to show him things, and they take him places. And if you watch his videos, he's just like constantly getting free stuff, and people are being super nice. But also, he has found a way to master these 4 things right here to a disgusting level. He is so friendly. And he almost has if you watch his videos long enough, you realize he basically has a script of what he's running through in his head to be friendly to people. He'll be walking and like run into somebody in the train, and he'll be like, oh, hey, I like and then point out something on their body, and then be like, where are you traveling from? And then they'll tell him, and he'll be like, is that where you're from originally? And they'll tell him where they're from originally, and he just has a big enough knowledge base that he can basically talk about wherever they're from, and he just keys in on that until they just start gushing about where they're from and what they do, and he's so good at being friendly and nice and builds that up. And he's like, oh, okay. And he does that to every single person you see him talk to, and these little connections he makes just freaking gives him the world. It's wild, some of the stuff that he gets on there. I mean, in one of his videos, he goes to a hotel, and he's sitting there talking to the clerk for like a long time about how he's checking in late, where he's from, and his clerk in this hotel. And at the end, she gives him an upgrade from a $500 a night room to a nearly $20,000 a night, like pet suite at the top, and like moves him up there. I'm sure the fame helps a little bit with his camera and everything. Like, I realize who he is, but mastering these connections are extremely important in business, especially in America, where we're very relationship focused in our businesses. So first, respectful engagement in all engagements. There's this like villainization of CEOs, and that might be true. Maybe CEOs are evil. I don't know. Whatever you all think is fine. I don't care. Think CEOs are evil, think they're not, whatever. But I can tell you, every CEO I've ever met has been remarkably respectful. Like, it's gross how nice they are. So they're generally very respectful in their engagements. Any connection within business should focus primarily on solving the problem, but importantly, creating the connection in a way where we're trying to share a problem or share a goal, right? That's why you'll see customer service often be trained to say things like, "Oh my gosh, let's work on, let's resolve this together. Let's help, let's get to this solution." Like trying to be like they're on their side, like, "Oh, this is frustrating. Let's do this together." Convey trust between the two of you. This is pretty interesting. If you show trust to someone else, their level of trust in you is higher, which is a little weird. But if you display trust to somebody else that didn't even know you, they reciprocate more trust back to you. It's just natural. And then playfulness in the interaction, which basically means keeping things light, keeping things friendly. And honestly, the best way to do this is to be this way with everybody you engage in. I mean, we can get psychological here and whatever and say that makes you a good human or not. But from a business standpoint, which is my job up here, being this way with every single person is the best way to be successful in organizations, because if humans see you be not this way to one person, they start thinking you're disingenuous and you're just doing it, to be. I've had students be super polite to me, and then in the hallway, I've heard them just be assholes to other students. And that immediately turns me off to that student. I'm like, oh, you're just doing it because of who, my position or title or whatever, or I have control over your grades. And immediately I'm like, gross. Don't like it. He's gross a lot. It's because I'm tired. I feel sick. I feel gross.
I've thought about drinking coffee instead of water. Might help.
I don't know. I feel like I would just start sweating a lot and get stressed, more stressed.
Listen, your sweat is weakness leaving the body, so
Yeah.
maybe that'll help.
You know how I know? I always start knowing I'm sick when I start just sweating, sitting somewhere. And then, So talking a little bit more about communication, I have this superstar because at the end, we are going to talk about managing up. Managing down, when we speak about management, is the most common thing. That is, you have employees, that's your whole job. You're managing them, telling them what to do, where to go, all that jazz. Managing up is the other way, and that is learning how to communicate and manage the people above you, which is an art in itself. Now, there's a lot of strategy for that, and we'll talk about them at the end. Generally, communication between managers and employees is considered low. Now, when we say communication between managers and employees, we're really talking about communication, if we were to define it, is exchanges of information between two parties, typically with the goal of understanding each other or trying to get to a common goal or just, convey some sort of information. But we're not really talking about asynchronous communication, which you probably see in the military more, which is me to you, and that's it. It's a one-way flow unless I need something. So communication between managers and employees back and forth is super low. Managers tend to direct communication one way, and then we don't get what's called a feedback loop, which is information coming back up. This is a little crazy because 80% of managers' working hours are actually spent in verbal communication, which stresses me out. Why I wouldn't want to be a manager. It's way too much talking for me. Send an email. It'd be great. However, medium is changing. Now, what I mean by that is there was a famous study. Oh, gosh. I don't think it's in our textbook. It's in a textbook I used to teach out of. They go into detail about it. But a gentleman essentially got permission to follow multiple CEOs around with a pen and pad and just sit there and write what they're doing. And what he found is that the majority of the time he was following CEOs around, the majority of the time they were either in a meeting or someone was coming up to them with something to say, to talk to them and ask them questions or whatever. So they basically spent their entire day in verbal exchanges back and forth. Nowadays, we still see that. However, that study came out late 90s, and email was around and everything then. But even in the last 20, 25 years, email's drastically increased. We've got Slack channels with instant messaging. We have Zoom, text messaging. You see more communication via phone in companies than we used to see. It used to be seen as super impersonal to use your phone, but now it's way more common. And so the medium is changing. So now we have communication, not just verbally, but through all these other mediums. And this is the part where it's so hard to teach you how to do this. The best way is to just be involved in that culture, right? You just have to practice communication via email and via Discord and whatever. It is kind of funny to watch you all email me because when people email me, they email me really professional, like this is Pete, really professional emails. And then next is text messages that people send me in this class, but usually slightly less professional, but still like, oh, hey, I'm so-and-so from your class, and like still slightly professional. And then the lowest form is definitely Discord. On Discord, people just like message me, hey, what's up? And then send me something. Maybe it's the type of student that uses those things, but I can definitely see the trend. But what's funny is I expect it. If somebody sent me a Discord message style in email, it would feel off. It would feel like wrong almost.
I feel like being too professional on Discord, like if you're on Discord, you're obviously doing something.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing games or whatever, and if you're in the middle of a game and I hit you with a professional message,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm not at work, bro. Like, leave me alone.
It's fair. I leave my Discord up all the time. But like when I'm working, my Discord's usually up. It's also on my phone, so you can message me anytime. But it is funny to jump on our class Discord, and if you don't hide your activity, anything you're doing that Discord, like any video game you play, pops up on Discord on the side.
Mhm.
So sometimes I go to our channel and I look and I see what everybody's playing. I'm like, oh, cool.
The one person with no care in the world what they play.
Yeah, there's always that. Yeah, I hide my activity because I don't want anybody. The worst. This isn't a bad thing. I've had students want to play video games with me, and I don't mind doing that, but only if they're not in my class. And students will message me on Discord and try to play. I'm like, I can't. Feels wrong.
I think if you're someone who's overly professional on Discord, it gives off Fed vibes.
I was about to say, it gives off bed vibes. Yeah. Now, difficulties. Some people, and I should have said this earlier, these things can be trained. And we do train CEOs on this. And I got super, super excited during my MBA because they had a CEO training course and they only took 8 students a year to do this course. And we did it with a CEO trainer. Basically, she went around the world. She had her big thing was she had trained the Coke CEO at the time. And I got through the class with her and I was all excited for it to see what I was going to learn. And then I took the class and it was great. She's the one that hooded me after my master's. However, the class was like 99% just this kind of stuff, like soft skills, taught you how to shake hands, how not to hurt people's feelings, how to be mean without being mean. It was all sorts of stuff. Even weird things like the 5 different ways you can shake someone's hand, like a firm shake, a shake in the hand on the shoulder, like how you shake a man's hand versus a woman's hand versus someone taller than you versus someone shorter than you, like all sorts of weird stuff. Isn't that crazy? And it kind of sucks because I have small hands, but I'm not very tall. So every way I have to shake hands is like aggressive because I'm small. So it can be trained. It can be natural, but we always see difficulties with our communication. Okay, making sure it wasn't a student trying to get in Zoom. It always is occasionally. So first of all, we have a much easier time building relationships with those that are similar to us, but hard with people that are dissimilar. And for all you introverts out there, building relationships takes a lot of energy. If you watch the gentleman I was watching, which next week I will have his name, so I will give him credit. He's extremely high energy, even when he's tired, making these relationships. You ever watch CEOs ever? They're extremely high energy.
Most of them.
Most of them, yeah. And something else they do is even though it's easier to build relationships with people similar to you, they're really, really good at finding similarities, which goes back to his whole spill that he does about something they're wearing that's nice, where did they come from, blah, blah, blah. He eventually gets to it something that they're excited to talk about, that he knows something about, and then he can show common interest. And now we're talking about something similar. I have a belief that everybody is more similar than they are different, just being humans living in the same space and in the world. And everybody I've talked to, I can usually find something that we both are excited to talk about. But again, it's much easier for me to do it with young men that play video games or people that have kids. If somebody has kids, we sit there and we gush about kids. If young men play video games or chess, I sit there and gush about that. But if I have somebody else, like 20-year-old girls that are into something else, it's so hard for me to find something similar. I have to keep working on it until we find something. But it's hard to make connections with people that are dissimilar with us. This is the catch-22 that we talked about earlier in the semester, where we tell organizations you want diverse organizations so you have a diversity of ideas. However, if the people aren't similar, they don't work together. So that's why you have to have similar values. And then you also have difficulties within the actual communication, which we get to what's called defensiveness and disconfirmation. Defensiveness is like the sensitivity line when people get rigid. It is when one individual gets defensive during the conversation because they feel threatened or attacked. And now we are no longer looking for a common solution. We are at odds. Allah, watch any of the 15 million videos that I know are coming across all you guys' feed about people debating politics in a public space. I don't care what side you're on. No one's coming to an agreement in those. Everybody is immediately in defensiveness. The goal between those interactions that are like viral, not all interactions, is not to have some sort of dialogue where we get to the same goal necessarily. A lot of times people come into it. Now, maybe it is. Maybe that is the goal. But as soon as one party gets defensive, it's not going to happen, is my point. So even if someone's there with good intentions and wants to have a dialogue and wants to teach somebody something in any setting with your relationships or whatever, as soon as one party gets defensive, it's so hard to get out of that. Defensiveness is typically characterized by aggression, anger, competitiveness, all sorts of things. Fun fact, though, you can avoid defensiveness if you tend to be emotionally stable and conscientious. People that are emotionally stable and conscientiousness tend to avoid defensiveness. They tend to look for the messages despite, what they think the other party's trying to do. And then disconfirmation is something I battle with when I talk to students all the time, which is if one person feels incompetent, insignificant, or unworthy. This morning I can't say their name, but this morning I had a meeting with a student who I'm his research advisor. It's for honors college. So he has to do a research project. And he comes to me with a research idea. And the balancing act I have to do every time when I communicate with him is he comes with this research idea, and I have to basically tell him, I can't just tell him it's going to work because it's not. There's things that need to be fixed on it. But everything I say about it, he just agrees. And it's like, okay, yeah. Because he views me as the expert of research or whatever, right? And anything I say to him about this, or if I say, oh, you should fix this or this, he won't give me any pushback or anything, which I would prefer if he would. But it's because of this disconfirmation. He feels like, oh, I can't challenge you, or I'm incompetent, or whatever. So it's a constant balancing act. So on my end, I spend a lot of time trying to do things like affirm him that it's okay, or it's okay to think differently than me, or to push back. I'm just helping you to have the best research you can. I'm losing my voice. I don't know. You guys probably can't hear it yet, but I can feel it. I'm having to put so much air behind my words right now. Excuse me. I'm trying to avoid standing right in front of you and coughing or anything. Although last week you were here sick, sitting right by everybody.
Barely, but yeah.
You're the reason he's sick right now.
You could be the reason. It's way more likely my kids.
So if it was me, so.
I think your book spends a long time talking about coaching and counseling. I don't want to spend a ton of time about it, but it is important. You have homework questions on it. So coaching, bless you, focuses on basically information and giving advice. This is more direct. This is when your manager's just giving you orders, probably a la more military-esque, right? Counseling focuses on attitudes. Typically, if one person is the expert or has full authority, they're in more of a coaching role. In more collaborative settings, or if you're working with somebody who has high skill or high ability, it tends to be more counseling. As a professor, there is a department head over me, and then we have a assistant dean, a dean, and then the president. Those are basically, if you're looking at the pecking order at the university, that's basically who's ahead of me. Anytime they communicate with me, specifically the dean, assistant dean, and head of the department, they are always operating typically in a counseling role, because in my job, they don't really tell you what to do. They more try to give you what you need to succeed, or if I'm going through problems, they meet with me to help me resolve it. However, in other positions, you may have more of a coaching role, especially if you're in something like any sort of like frontline service work, when you start out your job in high school. So the time to coach is if the person you're coaching has lack of ability. That's not necessarily about being that like in a negative term. It just means they don't know how to do this thing. Insufficient information. They have incompetence in this area. And it's important that subordinate understand this problem. Counseling can often be done if there's personality clashes going on with the organization as ways to avoid defensiveness or defensiveness has taken place. Any other factors tied to emotions. And like I said, often takes place more with people that already have ability to, understand the problems. In your homework, there's going to be a couple of questions on this, and it's going to ask you, like, is this a coaching scenario or a counseling scenario? Sometimes students get tripped up on it. Very, very importantly, go to this slide, and I directly use terms like from this slide to describe the scenario. So it's like, oh, this person is really good at this, or has never done this, or this. Like that would display lack of or have ability. Sometimes again, kickoff, by the way. Are you going to leave halfway through? It was like 7:15.
The first game kicks off in 10 minutes.
What? Why?
6:15. It's East Coast.
You can leave whenever. That's crazy. I prefer when they do the double headers, when they push the second game starts late, and then you watch until like midnight.
Because then that's the whole night. Yeah.
It's so awesome. Yeah,
But people complain about that too.
yeah,
I would rather it be later
people. I love it.
People-
Yeah. All right, now we're going to talk about supportive communication. This is going to be fun because you're going to hear some of these things, and for some reason, people like to tie it to politicians a lot, but you could also tie it to your managers. So we're going to talk about 8 points of supportive communication and things you should be doing to make sure that the words you are saying within your organization are being heard and you're saying them appropriately. So number 1 is congruence. I put all the words in bold, like the big 8 ones, so it should be pretty easy. One time I taught this class and I said, what's the golden rule? And I found out in that moment that the golden rule is be kind or do to others what you want done to you. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. I thought the golden rule was be honest or tell the truth. And apparently I was wrong. So because of that, I have to say this is the silver rule or whatever, which is tell the truth. If you want me to help settle the debate on the psychology, sociology of lying and human communication, what we know from the best research is that saying what you mean and meaning what you say and just telling the truth, not bluntly necessarily, is always the best, even over like white lies and stuff. Now, obviously, you can think of times of like when you should do white lies, and like one time I had a student be like, "So you're in your house and a killer comes in, and you're gonna tell them the truth about what your kids are buying?" Easy, all right.
Why don't you have a coach?
Yeah, let's not get too critical of these rules here. But generally, in organizations, telling the truth is always better, and making sure that there is a match between what you are thinking and feeling and what you are displaying with others. If you are a manager and an employee underperforms or does something wrong, whatever, it helps no one. It helps the organization none. It helps the person none. If you say it's fine, you didn't do anything wrong or whatever, that helps nobody, okay? Especially if the employee knows it's not fine. This is bad. I did this bad. Now immediately there's actually builds a lack of trust between you two, but true congruence between what you are feeling and thinking and then what you say is important. Now, there's tactful ways about this, especially if it's a personal or delicate situation and the feedback is going to be difficult, but this is just something you have to work on. One big thing is to keep it away from being personal, make it focused on the goals, but always being truthful as a manager is the best. That being said, I think a lot of organizations like to operate in this idea of withholding information. And so they're not lying to you. They just avoid telling it to you, which I think is lying by admission. I'm a firm believer in that. Don't shove the shrug. It's
I mean, sometimes it's above their pay grade.
sometimes it is. Then descriptive. So in your communication that you're being honest in, make sure you're describing the event objectively and your emotions clearly. This really is just as it says. It is just being descriptive about what you are saying. So that we're all on the same page. Should be problem oriented. This is how people get defensive. It should focus on the event or the problem within the organization, not personal traits, especially those that cannot be changed. It's kind of funny because I have to speak out of two sides of my mouth when I say this and say that within U.S. organizations, relationships are extremely important and positive relationships are extremely important. And in the United States, we're very much reliant on interactions between individuals and relationships with those individuals, while also saying at the same time, these conversations should focus nothing about the person and all about the problems, right? So it's that fun balancing act of yay, humans and our nuance.
Whenever I'm trained, like if an employee does something wrong, I cannot use the words "you did this." Like for example, if since I work in tech, if you activate the wrong phone number on a phone, I cannot use the phrase "you activated the wrong phone number." I had to say, well, during the process of the sale, the wrong phone number was activated on the phone. So I cannot. I have to use a.
words.
That make you feel worse.
Yeah.
I feel like I would sit there and be like, did I do that?
Beating around the bush.
Yeah. No, but I think most people, it would hurt their feelings or they get aggressive.
That's what I'm trained to do because
Yeah.
it's how they do it. So I can't. I'm not supposed to use descriptives of "you did this."
Mm-hmm. You have to focus on the problem. Yeah, they teach you that in organizations as well, especially when you're talking, and this should be common to all of you, but just in case, if you're talking in a team setting, you don't highlight whoever made the mistake, right? You can highlight the mistake individually when you're talking to that person, but you shouldn't highlight whatever on a broad scale, which that's actually going to get more interesting here in a second when we talk about owning statements you make. Supportive communication should validate. This means communication is supposed to be two ways, even though, as we already said, most managerial communication is one way from manager to employee. It should be two ways. And it's important that during that communication, you are validating what the other person is saying so that they feel recognized and understood. I'm not going to say who this is ever in case you look them up. There's one person I worked for during academia who every time I had a problem, they were the person I was supposed to contact and they were above me. Surely other people have had managers that when you talk to them, you feel like they're having a different conversation than you. I almost felt like every time I talked to her, I felt like I was talking to a badly written AI.
Yeah.
I don't know if they weren't listening or if they have pre-planned responses or whatever, but I would express problem and concern and I would get an answer back that didn't quite feel like it was connected to what I said, but kind of was, on the same subject. So good people that are good at this, validate what you're saying, validate your concerns, and acknowledge whatever you said, which we'll talk about a little bit more of reciting things back and stuff. It should be specific. Good communication is very specific in the details, especially within organizations. You avoid general statements, and also, and this is important for marriage, if you've ever gone to marriage counseling, you also avoid extremes such as always or very or never. Stuff like that's bad. You didn't know it's good for communication. You never take out the trash. That's technically not a true statement. They take out the trash before. So you don't use that. You have to use almost never take it. You rarely. For some reason, in Oklahoma, to get your marriage license for free or whatever, you have to go to marriage counseling. So me and my wife did. For some reason, I really took that one away. Don't use very or never or always.
It's not focused on enough, I don't think.
You should have time and dates so every single time they take out the trash, and you did. You got to be specific.
No, so in relationships, it's different because I can't. fire my wife. Well, some people think they can fire their wife. I don't believe in divorce, so I can't fire my wife, so I have to make it work. And then conjunctive. It's different than validating. Validating is important. It's to show the other person that they should feel understood, what their concerns are valid. Conjunctive is making sure that this is a two-way conversation that we are both participating in, which I think is more so what this person failed at doing that I used to speak with. In conjunctive conversations, it is I say a few sentences, I pause to let you respond or add detail, and then the start of my next sentence should somehow incorporate what you just said while staying on the same subject. And I'm so bad about this, it's just a human. I think it's because I do research and I teach a lot, which is very asynchronous. I mentally jump around a lot. My brain's always been that way. I tend to, and I also expect people to come along with me on this journey, and they can do it. But it's something I have to work on. Trained CEOs during that CEO training class and stuff, they would tell us to always wait for the other person to respond, always make the first sentence about whatever that person said, and then continue. And also to never interrupt somebody. And they showed us a crazy video of a CEO dealing with a bunch of basically bad managers. And think about yourself next time you're talking to somebody and see if you can do this. Every single time anyone started to say anything, they would immediately stop talking on whatever they're saying. So they're in a sentence, and as soon as someone else started talking, they would just stop and let that person talk and then go. They never talked while someone else was talking, even if they were clearly being interrupted. And that's actually a really hard thing to do. You should try it. You'll make it 2 conversations before you're like, this is maddening, because people interrupt all the time.
I think that's the difference between good CEOs and bad ones. I met one CEO at this old company I worked with who would not shake your hand because you're lower class, which is his excuse.
Yeah.
And he would just talk over people and just didn't talk to half the staff, including managers who worked at the company longer than him.
See, I feel CEO is a broad term. We like to use CEO as this big higher class, but it's just a title like manager. You can be a CEO of a very small company. And,
This was a big company, really enough. Old Time Pottery.
Oh, yeah.
It's now defunct. Bought out by Gabe's. Same thing.
Supportive communication should be owned. This one's easier said than done. For some reason, it's something we've done really, really well in sports, which is, the coach loses or the CEO or the quarterback throws an interception, and the first thing they say is, "That's on me. This is my fault. We didn't do a good job preparing them." And then you deflect praise. Oh, it was the team effort, right? It wasn't me. That's something we do really, really well in sports, but we do not do good in the higher up you get within organizations and within politics, right? It kind of swaps where people tend to own positive statements and disown negative ones. You should, in theory, and employees appreciate it when managers or CEOs or whoever, when they make statements, they capitalize them with ownership if it was them or someone else.
Amazon trains that.
They do?
Yeah, every single time we would mess up on a goal, they're like, "Hey, we overworked you guys a bit. We just gonna get our goals. We'll modify it for tomorrow and have a plan of action, but taking ownership of the event that took place."
That's good. Now, it's so hard for me to tell you all certain situations. All I can do is throw out all this theory, and you all just hopefully something sticks and you can use it. But to show you how precise language is, and one of the first things they taught me in my PhD, if it was regarding research, is words have to matter. So you say what you mean. Is if I am the manager of a team of 20 people, and I have to let 2 people go, and I'm going to have to look at performance reviews and do it, a very common statement that managers will make is, we are going to have to make cuts based on performance in the last 2 months. That statement versus, I have to make the decision on who to cut based on performance in the last 2 months, employees actually drastically prefer the second one. because you don't have a manager that's kind of hiding or pretending like there's someone else making this decision besides that. They appreciate the ownership, believe it or not. But it's hard as a manager to look at your team and say, I'm going to choose two of you to fire. And managers don't want to do that. But ultimately, it's better. I think a lot of it, personally, talking to managers is because when they have that hard conversation, they want to be able to deflect it onto somebody else and try to like save face with everybody. Like, well, the company's making me do it or whatever. But employees typically prefer direct ownership. Military man, can I ask you? They probably like ownership in military, don't they?
You answered 50.
50-50?
Um,
I figured they would want like.
well, I mean,
your ownership
officers deflect onto their higher groups, and that basically officers don't do much. It's just they'll tell the NCOs, the sergeants, to get on someone's ass or something.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Basically, they have their grunts do it.
What we're going to do is we're going to go through this last one. We're going to take a 5-minute pause, and then we're going to come back and we are going to do the rest of the class and be done. The case study thing we're doing today is just an article. It won't take long. So the last one is active listening. You all know what active listening is. It's one of those buzzwords that got really popular like 10, 15 years ago. And we really wanted everybody to learn how to do active listening. But active listening is basically showing that you're actively engaged in the conversation, where you're looking, giving immediate responses, yes, nodding your head, stuff like that. There is an argument to be made that you can go overboard, and you've all talked to somebody like that. But there's a lot of things you can do that actually help with active listening. Looking at the person while they're talking, not looking at your phone, things like that, not diddling with things. If you've ever talked to me after class, I'm sorry. I work on it, but I have a real bad problem of trying to work on things or trying to get things done. It helps me listen to people, and it always has. To do something while someone is talking to me. During my PhD, I played chess during every single class. I had it on my phone or on the computer, and I would do it while I'm listening. Fidget spinners were made for me to sit there and do something, but it's technically against all active listening principles. You're supposed to look at somebody and listen, and I struggle. And I always have. I have no diagnosis that I know of, but I don't want one. I've made it this far in life, I don't care. So I'm not looking. You know what's cool about finding out things about, I've been with my wife for 10 years. I found out this year she has diagnosed ADHD. How crazy is that? She never told me. I found out she was diagnosed ADHD when we were younger because I kept pointing out things that she was like just forgetting. That she was like, I have ADHD. And I was like, do you? Found out she really did. How wild's that?
I have a manager that has ADHD, and if she does not take meds in the morning, it's nuts all day.
HR is the ultimate scapegoat. HR is telling me I have to give you this write-up. That is so true. And what's funny is HR is telling them they have to give this write-up, but it's because they went to HR and said, how do I write this person up? When it comes to Japanese business world and culture study, active listening is a must-trained from a young age. Yes, this is so. Now you have a way better understanding than I do, Caden. I want to say this. One of my mentors was from Japan, and this was really, really big to him, and he was excellent at it. And he taught me a few things. And again, because of my personality and style, it's something I have to really work on. But one that I never forgot is business cards were like a big deal. And so I always make sure I have a folder that has places for business cards here. And they always told me to take business cards with two hands from somebody, especially in Japanese culture. I believe it's two hands. Two hands and look at it and give it a second. And then make sure they see me place it somewhere safe. Because I used to be like, thanks. And so, but again, I think teaching business is just like coaching. You do it, you teach it because you can't do it. So it's perfect. I lived in Japan and my girlfriend is Japanese. I had to learn so much, so many things that considered weird. Oh, I'm sure I'm just a walking red flag in Japan. So we're going to take a quick pause and then we're going to come back to responses, which is advising, deflecting, probing, and reflecting. That's pretty much the last thing we're going to do before the little case study. And then we'll be done. And I'll tell you about the AI assignment if you want to do it. And we'll get out of here. And we'll go watch the Bengals
Wow.
win.
Wow.
I hope they win.
Listen, the Jets won a game this year.
All right. So we're going to talk about responses during communication. Now, throat is so sore. Excuse me. The four basic types are advising, deflecting, probing, and advising, deflecting, probing, and reflecting, which I think they're actually appropriately named because they don't spell anything fun. The first is advising. This is in the communication. You go into an advising role. Hopefully, it's an appropriate time to be an advisor. This is where you're providing direction, evaluation, or instruction. That's most of our communication here. If you ever communicate with me, most of the time students are asking me questions or things about the course. And so it's an advising response by me, which is to give you direction, basically. It's appropriate if one person has expertise and the other doesn't, or if the purpose of the communication is to get direct information, not some kind of communicative response between the two of you. You are specifically looking for an answer. Then we have deflecting. This can be good because at first read, it seems bad. Deflecting is where I am switching the communication from whatever you were talking about to something else selected by me. So if I'm the listener. So you're worried about something or you bring a problem to me and I deflect. Deflecting can be bad in a lot of cases because I'm basically saying whatever you told me doesn't matter, or it appears I'm not listening in a lot of ways. However, deflecting can be good, especially if you have an employee who's panicked or worried about something that's not actually going to come to pass. I get an email from a student that says, oh my gosh, I didn't get the lecture question turned in and it's Monday now, and so I'm a day late and I'm so worried about my grade. And this does happen, students freak out. Typically students that freak out about grades are my students that are doing the best in class, you know, just how it is. And they're always panicked, and I always have to be like, easy. This is not the thing to worry about in this class. I promise. Your lecture question worth 10 points that gets only loses 10% every day that you miss it is not the thing. You should be worried about the action plan due next week or whatever. Or they're like, a lot of times like, oh, I missed it because of this. I was like, yeah, you should really be focusing on that, not this. Deflect it to something else. Probing. This is asking further questions. A lot of communication, when you all ask me questions, if it's not something simple, it's typically probing followed by advising. Or deflecting if your question's dumb. Just kidding. No dumb questions. That is true. I've heard, your teacher's always told you and your boss always tells you there's no dumb questions, but I gotta be honest, you teach long enough, you've heard every question so many times that when students ask me something that may seem simple and they're like, oh, I feel so stupid, I'm always like, you don't understand. I get that question 100 times. It's not dumb. Like, it's apparently not because everybody asks it. So asking questions about the communicator set, the communicator set. This can again appear like you're not listening because you need them to re-specify things back to you. Excuse me. It's getting bad. I'm glad it's the only, I don't have to teach again until Thursday, so I can make it. There are 4 general types of probe. We have elaboration, which is things such as, can you tell me more about whatever you said? Clarification, tell me specifically what you mean by that. Repetition. This is, if I've asked you a question, you communicate something back, a lot of times I have to repeat it to actually get the answer. This happens a lot in communication. I'm asking you something or telling you something, and then you give me a response that doesn't quite fit that, so I have to bring it back to that point. And then reflection, pursuing the same topic in greater detail, which brings us to reflecting, which is mirroring back what the communicator said, or at least how I heard it. If a student tells me something really big and really panicky or whatever, one of the things I do, and one of the things you should practice doing, is reflecting what they told you in your own words as you understand it. Don't just use their words right back to them, because then you don't even know if you actually understand it. But if a student comes to me with something kind of complex or whatever, and you say it back to them how you would phrase it, then they can tell you if that's right or not. In research, we have to do this a lot because it's very acidic and lots of big terms, and we make things way too complicated. So a lot of times when people come to me, like I'm working on a case study right now, and they're all worried about whatever, and I get these massive emails that are like panicking about different parts of the research. and I have to respond back with a short paragraph that's like, okay, so the problem is this, the way I see it. And then I get a yes or a no, it's more of this or whatever. Okay, we're not going to go to the reflecting steps. I've already covered all this. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about communication in the org. PMI is important because it goes to our AI thing. Kind of sound like I want to right now. So we have personal management interview program, a PMI. Not a PIP, as one student thought I was talking about. PIP is different. Performance improvement plan. PMI. These are regularly scheduled, often bi-weekly or monthly, one-on-one meetings between manager and subordinate. Typically, if you're working in a corporate organization, you'll meet with my wife meets with all of her subordinates in one-on-ones once a week, which she'll tell you it basically takes up an entire day. So she really has a 4-day week. So she spends one day just meeting her employees. Then the higher up the corporate ladder you get, the less often you meet with that person. My wife's directly underneath the CFO, so she meets with the CFO once a quarter. So every 3 months, her and the CEO have a one-on-one. Our CFO have a one-on-one meeting. Now, it's one of the most adopted tools by managers. It should seem pretty standard now, but it doesn't. It used to not be that standard. The point is to create a time to meet with employees regularly so that they have a specific time that is for communication. We have found employees are more likely to come to you with problems, and students, by the way, that's why we have office hours, if there is a designated time that you get to talk to them, rather than just a complete open door policy. So if you tell employees, hey, if you ever need anything, just let me know, they're less likely to come to you when they need something than if it is every Friday at 10 o'clock, we're going to have our meeting. Because what they do is they think, okay, I need to tell them that at this meeting. So that seems to get more communication and more from your employees. Now, we say that's why we have office hours, but that's not how it works in practice. None of y'all come to my office hours. That's fine. I don't want you there.
What are your office hours again?
They are from 11 to 5 on Monday. I am downstairs.
Only on Monday.
In person, they're on Monday. On Wednesday, they are in the morning, I think from 11 to 2 on Zoom. So you can come anytime. Then
I'm in the office both days, man.
It's fine. I tell students, you can come to my office hours, and we have office hours for this reason. It's to make professors available, and the idea was originally students that had questions where they won't ask in class and they won't ask after a class. And it's this principle. It's the same reason we actually have PMIs. We create an office hour, which is, hey, every week I have these hours that you can come specifically talk to me. The problem is if I set up one-on-one interviews with all of you every single week, then I would get all the questions. You would ask me, but that's just not feasible. I've got over 100 students and I ain't doing it. So. Except for my MBA students, so I usually do one-on-one interviews at the end of the semester with everybody. There's only 6 of them, so it's easier. Now, really quick, before I flip to the next slide, I want to show you something. For my undergrad students, you can do this for bonus points. My MBA students, you have to do it. Sorry. I'm working on a paper right now about the use of AI in the classroom. And one thing that I found is a lot of these things, especially with the communication lecture, are super difficult to get across because you all listen to me talk to a bunch of terms that you've probably heard before, or they're all really conceptual to you, but there's really no way to practice it. Not that there's 100 of you all. I mean, I'm going to give you a case study to read over, and we're going to have homework on it, but there's really no way to practice. So we constantly are in that position in academia of trying to find a way to apply things that you're learning. So we have this thing called the AI Conversation with Alex Carter. I'm actually working on a better version of it, but it's not ready yet, where I'm creating an API AI that'll be like its own website you can go to and do this. But for now, we'll use the one in Blackboard. So what this is, and I think it's kind of fun, is I built out this AI basically in here. You can't see all of its personality traits that are behind the scenes, but it is a scenario that I put together where you are the manager at a mid-sized technology company conducting a personal management interview, a PMI, with one of your direct reports named Alex Carter. Alex is skilled, blah, blah, blah. He oversees multiple projects. All all of this stuff, but basically what it comes down to is he's failing to meet key deadlines. He's doing worse. That's all you need to know. He's doing worse. And you'll get to read the scenario beforehand. And you are supposed to come into this and at the end of the conversation, understand Alex's key challenges and concerns, help him develop a plan to manage their workload effectively, reinforce the company's expectations while showing support, and establish clear next steps. I did this once last year and all the students really liked it because basically I was like, here's the scenario, you're a manager and this is what you have to do. And the conversation starts out with just Alex coming in and being like, hey, and then you just have to like talk with them back and forth. And I found that students actually have to think about their responses, and the AI I think is decently well programmed. I've talked to it multiple times and it's decent at it. And it definitely tries to get to a solution at the end. But at the end, you'll hopefully have answers to all of these questions. Whoa. And then you can answer down here about the assignment and you get 5 points extra credit. Yay, you. So you don't have to do it, but if you want. My MBA students, you do the exact same thing, except you actually have to answer these questions at the very end. It'll be on your homework. Why does it keep jumping out? It's annoying the hell out of me. On your homework, it asks you these questions and you have to put your answer. I found it's helpful. So this is what you guys will be doing for that. You can do it in Blackboard. It's all through Blackboard right now. You don't have to go to an external website yet. In the future, you're going to have to. So there you go. Oh, I can't go into all this stuff. That's all those details. At the end, I do ask you, what did you think about the assignment? All this stuff. You can tell me your honest opinion. I need to tell you though, whatever you say back and forth with this AI, I can read. So just heads up. Just in case. Your conversation is fully public to me. No one else, but I can see all your conversation with it, so don't go crazy. Also, I don't know what it would do if you went crazy. That'd be kind of fun. I should really test that. What's up?
Oh, crazy on it, don't worry.
Please don't. I have things I have to report if things are said, so don't.
Don't worry, not too crazy.
But I need to mess with it more and see how much I can break it. But it's pretty good. It's trained to like pull you back to the conversation, so.
How much information does it have access to? Like the true open source?
It's not open source. It's very limited. Yeah. It only has what I've given it, basically. Yeah, it's not searching the internet. Yeah. So, and the one I'm developing with OpenAI, that's basically this exact same scenario, is super limited. I've got it like everything I'm putting into it is the only thing it can pull from.
So no instructions for pipe bombs is what I'm getting at.
No, it's not. Nothing. Well, if it did, it's going to shock me, but it shouldn't.
That's fine though.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's jump to this last slide really quick. I'm not going to make it big because we're going to put it on the screen. There was an article that came out 4 days ago that I read, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect for my lecture, and I like to try to get my lectures as modern as possible. So, this comes from Harvard Business Review. It's one of the few places that I feel comfortable sharing with my class, if I'm ever going to talk about articles specifically. But the Harvard Business Review did a paper or an article called When Your CEO's Leadership Creates Chaos. I'm going to discuss this article a little bit, and it's going to be your lecture question. So in the PowerPoint, you can actually see the URL right there. Please open that up. The article's pretty short. You can knock it out pretty quick. It's like 2 or 3 pages, maybe less. Read through that real quick. Then we're going to talk about it briefly. I'm going to give you like 5-10 minutes to talk about it or to read it. Then we're going to talk about it for like 5 minutes. Then you all are going to be out of here just a little bit after 7 o'clock, and you're going to go watch the Bengals win. Is the game started for them, or are they the second game?
No, they've got
Cool.
30 more minutes.
Okay, cool. We'll be out before then, 100%. So, all right. So it is 6:47. I'm going to check in on everybody at 6:55. Then we're going to discuss it. Maybe be done just a touch after 7. I can put it up on the screen if you guys just want to, if you're in class and want to be able to see it. Yeah. I'll read it with you so I know when to scroll down again. Second, I gotta pull this out of the side. Oh my gosh, this thing needs to get out of the way. There we go. All right. What?
The religious part of Christmas is Cy opted in. You know,
Yeah,
because he
yeah,
was
yeah.
born like 3 months prior.
Yeah. It was, yeah. If you're Christian and you follow that, yeah, he was. It could be on the recording, whatever. It's believed he was born way after. I think actually, I think it's spring. But anyway, I could be wrong. Somebody can fact check me on that. But historians put it at a different date. Anyway, God bless you. Feels anyway. So this article popped up. Gosh, 4 days ago, I think it was, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I'm not gonna make my screen big because I'm about to throw this thing over on top of this over here. But it's funny to talk about managing up because it kind of sounds like babysitting to a degree. And there's two things I want to tell you right off the bat before we get into this anymore. Why is there a disconnect between managers and employees? And more importantly, why is there a disconnect between the C-suite and everybody else, a la Wells Fargo and everything going at the top versus everything that's going at the bottom? I will tell you, in my experience, it is not, from the manager's perspective or the CEO's perspective, the C-suite, it is not that all the employees are dumb. And from the employee's perspective, I will tell you, looking up, it is not that the C-suite just makes a whole bunch of terrible decisions. In my experience, what it has been working on consulting with multiple teams is that the employees see the trees and the managers see the forest. Managers are looking for long-term strategic plans. They're looking at very, very large, big picture, and they don't always see the implications at the immediate, like entry-level employee, boots on the ground standpoint. And the employees don't often see the long-term ramifications of some of the decisions that will happen. If you think about Starbucks, one of my favorite companies to talk about, mostly because a lot of their stuff's very public, is when they had their first dip in stock in one quarter, they didn't reach their sales goals, basically, so they had a bit of a dip. And after that, they made drastic changes. From the C-suite perspective, they were doing it for long-term success. They were trying to save money and trying to get ahead of problems before they became bigger problems. One of the ways they did that was by reducing staff on the floor and increasing the hours of the employees that were working. That is a reasonable solution to that problem. To the employees on the ground who don't really care that much about the long-term solution to the organization, what they saw was my hours are increased, and they don't understand that having 4 baristas on the floor is more important than you think, because even though Starbucks did their little analysis and they showed that, well, 1 out of the 4 employees is not making a drink 70% of the time, 80% of the time. The employees see that during that 20% of the time, 4 is drastically important to have on the floor. Otherwise, we get way behind really quick, or it's so much more stressful on us, right? That is the disconnect that we see between the two all the time. Big long-term decision-making, short-term ramifications, and the clash between the two. What's up?
There's actually a really like the military. The military has a big one where a lot of the greatest generals throughout history and even in current days come up from the bottom. So they see the forest and the trees, lead from the front.
Yeah. Well, that's why a lot of times people that are promoted up within a company and eventually reach C-suite are better leaders in those positions, right? Because they understand, they've been there before. However, then we kind of reward it backwards, and it's almost impossible to get a C-suite position in a company that you start out entry level and promote through. You almost always have to transfer companies and go laterally to get up. Yeah. That's just what it is. They told, again, my wife is always a great example. They told my wife her next promotion is director, which is the role right below C-suite. She'll probably get it the next year. And they told her, if you ever have aspirations of being C-suite, you'll have to go somewhere else, because you basically have to wait till someone dies and then hope they don't hire externally, because that is what it is. But that is one, is seeing the trees versus the forest between CEOs and managers. And the other comes back to this idea of just asynchronous communication. A lot of times there isn't good avenues for people to communicate up, and we don't teach employees to communicate up very well. So the paper showed that 45% of company variation tied to effectiveness of CEOs. 70% of that variance is an employee. 70% of the variance in employee engagement is all about CEOs, basically decision making. So if you ever wondered, do CEOs matter? There's a debate about how much CEOs actually matter to the positivity of the country or the company. What we find is that in a lot of companies they do, in some companies it doesn't seem to matter. But we do know that CEOs can be a detriment to the company. Basically, a bad CEO can hurt your company. Whether a good CEO can be beneficial to the company kind of just depends on the company. There's some people that have made a living being great CEOs and pulling companies from the ashes. There's some companies that it seems like no matter who they plug in, they're going to be successful. I think Coke's the example they used to give for that. Coke has been pretty famously just like successful no matter who the CEO's been. But maybe that just means they're awesome at finding the talent. Now, the 5 strategies they talk about here, basically the paper, I'm sure that you already read it, or the article, is talking about how CEOs can cause chaos, which is why this paper, or this article I thought was interesting, because it's like treating employees like babysitters to the CEO. And it's like, listen, your CEO is going to mess up things, and here's how you deal with it, right? Even though CEOs should be there to help. One they talked about, and this is so important to you all, is managing up with intention. As employees at an organization, you will see better ways to do things sometimes, and you will have ideas that you think are better. If your goal is to keep your job and to climb up in the company, you do have to know, at some point, you have to know that the person above you, what their goals are, that gets to determine, your future, are more important. And that's hard to say sometimes. But if the CEO is like, I think we need to pivot the company this way, and you're like, that is a terrible idea, right? We don't want to do that. But the CEO is determined on it, that you either got to move companies or to do your job well. That's what you got to do. You just going, okay, even though I think there's a different way to do this, this is what it is. So managing up with intention, the article talks about understanding what's important to the CEO or the people above you. There are times to go above your own manager. Sometimes you'll have a manager above you that has a belief that you guys should be doing X, and you're like, I think I should be doing Y, and I think that's going to be better for the company. There are cases that you should go above your manager and talk to that person. That's a whole different conversation about when it's acceptable to go around your manager to somebody else, because it pisses people off, basically, when you circumvent people. Happens to professors sometimes. If a student has a problem with a professor, they'll go talk to the dean first. Actually, they talk to the head of the department, then the dean first. The head of the department, the dean, is always going to tell you to talk to your professor first, unfortunately, for you all. So message your professor, and then if your professor tells you to go to hell, then message the head of the department. That's how you do it. So there you go. The article does one thing that I think is super important. I'm going to highlight really quick right here. And then we're not going to talk about the rest very much. This idea of situation, complication, and resolution is really a way to write a good email to a CEO. Understanding what's important to your manager or CEO, doesn't have to be CEO. When you need to communicate with them, because managers and CEOs are constantly be given problems and expected to find solutions. And if you want to give a good solution and get credit for it and have any control over your future, you should follow this advice, which is situation to the manager or CEO. We're on track to launch the campaign next month. Wow, I'm losing it right now. Complication, early testing shows adoption risk that could undermine investor confidence. So this is the situation right now. We're on track. This is a complication we are dealing with, so you are aware. And here is my resolution for it. Delaying by 2 weeks strengthens proof points and accelerates adoption, which investors will value. If you said, hey, we're on track, but it looks like we're going to undermine investor confidence, that may lead to CEOs saying, well, we're going to launch it anyway because I think you're wrong. Or whatever different solution. We're all going to work extra hard this next time. We're going to delay it by 4 weeks. We're going to delay it by 5 weeks. But you, who is working on the situation, knows that 2 weeks is enough time to get this done the way we need to get it done. So you give the situation, explain the complication, give the resolution really, really quick. It ties to the CEO or the manager's priorities. It informs them and it immediately gives them a solution. Now, they may push back and tell you to do something else. That's fine. But this strategy seems to go over the best. What a deep breath just then. Not ready to go watch the Bengals. I get it. We're going to be quicker about these last two. The last four, rather. It talks about a building agreements. This one was fine. It just talks about how CEOs basically create what we call organizational whiplash. That's a pretty common term. Organizational whiplash is people above you or above your managers can basically change decisions on you last second, and that drastically alters what you're doing. CEOs, again, with the forest and trees things, they can make wide sweeping changes like cutting people's hours or putting less people on the floor at Starbucks, and it has drastic shifts to your own life, but minor shifts to them. These middle two here, external voices and creating a coalition, all this basically says is don't be alone in this fight. It appears that CEOs particularly will listen to voices outside the company, like consultants or consumers and stuff like that. And then also, if you build a coalition around yourself about other people that agree with what you're saying, that always goes better. Because, you know, when I have one student email me and say, hey, I think this assignment's unfair, my immediate thought is, sorry, I've done this assignment for 2 years to 1,000 students and none of them ever complained. So it's probably you. But I'll listen to whatever your complaint is. But if I get a bunch of emails from students who are like, hey, I think this is unfair, then it immediately signals to me, okay, maybe something's wrong, right? And then lastly, but not leastly, as I used to say, practice strategic patience, which is understand that most decisions, and when you are communicating with your CEO about things you want done, it's going to come slowly. It can sometimes be very, very slow, which is why we focus on small wins. Now, you've already read this, so I don't want to go over it anymore. But for your lecture question, all I want you to tell me is one thing you took away from this article that you hadn't thought about before. I like this article. I'm glad it popped up. I'm probably going to use it I'll use it in the spring as well, and then I have to move on to do something different. But that is it. I'm going to